occurrence, as sometimes happens. We've got a lot going on today. I don't see anything coming up over here. Let's hope we're live, and if there's any problem, we'll just upload later. My guest, of course, legal expert, regular guest on the show, Larry Klayman. Larry, lovely to see you as always.
The same, Jason. How are you?
I'm well. I'm a little concerned that Donald Trump keeps setting the bar extremely low when it comes to attorney generals. I've got you dressed in your swamp waders today, Larry, because it seems like this William Barr is about as muddy as you can get. Ex-GHW Bush man who actually was in the CIA. I know you've got a lot to tell us about him. Now, when you were in the Department of Justice, Larry, did you work directly with William Barr?
No, I was at the Justice Department during the latter years of the Carter administration going into the Reagan administration. And the Attorney General then under the Democrats was Benjamin Civiletti. And then, of course, it became a Republican appointee. His name, frankly, I don't remember at this point. But the reality is, Jason, that this guy is more than a swamp creature, okay? You know, if you look at what went on today at this confirmation hearing, it was frankly disgusting. I mean, it was the Washington establishment, the elites of both political parties, very happy that their guy was going to be nominated and confirmed as the next Attorney General of the United States. Are a product of H.W. Bush, the dad, an establishment Republican, formerly an Attorney General for 2 years during that administration, wasted no time in saying that Robert Mueller was his best friend of 30 years. We also know, of course, that his wife's been going to Bible study with his wife, that he's a man of great integrity, that he's not going to curtail anything that Mueller wants, that the president is lying, saying that this is a witch hunt. He really humiliated the president of the United States who nominated him.
Yeah.
And this guy, of course, is bad news. I mean, that's why, you can say, what the bar is here, the legal bar, in terms of what you have to get over to get this guy confirmed. But I say the president's been drinking at the wrong bar. I've been suggesting that he not take the Kool-Aid of the Republican establishment and appoint someone like Bob Barr, who I worked with in the impeachment of Bill Clinton, who's independent, former U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, former congressman, a courageous guy, special counsel, and that does is bad news. And if you look at the commentary, particularly on Fox News, I was watching. I appeared on Newsmax earlier today, and of course, your show, Crowdsource the Truth. But Fox News is crowing that this guy's going to get confirmed as if this is some kind of a victory. I mean, what world do we live in? I mean, are people going to listen to this garbage and think that this is something that's really good? It's not, because the president's fallen back into the swamp. So, yeah, my swamp waders that you put on in the front are quite appropriate. You might also have an alligator crawling across the screen. I think it would also be appropriate.
Absolutely. I wish I would have thought of that. So let's get into a little bit of it's difficult for us to understand why Donald Trump would even choose somebody like this. I mean, does he not look at history at all, Larry? I mean, this is a guy who seems like he's ready to skewer Trump.
Well, and he says, I'm not going to stop what Mueller's doing. It will take more than bad faith or bad cause, whatever you want to call it, for me ever to remove him. I'm not going to curtail him. He effusively praised Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and suggested that he's going to work with Rosenstein. Well, I thought Matthew Whitaker was put in as the acting Attorney General until Barr is confirmed. It's the entire Washington club. This guy is the club. Now, the president, we love him, but he's distracted. He's got a lot of things on his plate when it comes to the border wall, immigration, Iran, North Korea, those kinds of things. And he's getting bad advice, not just from his own lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, but also obviously the White House counsel's office, which is also establishment Republican. And then, of course, the judges he's appointed, also based on establishment Republican recommendations. I've been in front of 2 or 3 of them. I mean, most of these guys have no guts. They're looking for their to possibly getting Democrats ever control the Senate again if they want a higher appointment. So, we're in a really bad way, and the president is being sold down the river with bad advice, and he's got to snap out of it. I've said it before, kind of like the movie Moonstruck, when Cher smacks Nicolas Cage and says, "Snap out of it. Don't be in love. Don't be in love with these people. These people are going to destroy you. They're going to stick it right up your you-know-what.
Yeah.
If you keep going along like this."
So is there an opportunity right now, Larry, for President Trump to kind of, call a do-over and unnominate this guy? It seems like he's barreling towards confirmation.
Or he should yank the nomination tonight, but he won't do that, I'll tell you, because the dynamics are such that if he did that, now he'll be accused of obstruction of justice. I would do it. Don't worry about it. Do what you have to do. But this guy is simply a placeholder. He's a rubber stamp. He also says, Jason, I don't need this. I'm 68 years old. I'm 67. I'm never going to retire. That's not an old age. And to say, I don't need this, I'm doing this even though I'd rather retire, I mean, that's disingenuous. That's dishonest, as a matter of fact. Obviously, he wants to be part of the action. That's what it's all about in Washington, D.C. It's power. Yeah. It's money. Yeah. It's shaking both trees. So, this guy is really something to be aware of on the horizon. And, frankly, I was disgusted at what I saw at this hearing today. And I'm tired of hearing, cable news networks putting a happy face on things because they got to keep viewers coming back, because it's been so pessimistic in the past with nothing happening by the Republican establishment and people on Capitol Hill. They got to show some hope to boost their ratings and jingle the change with advertisers. I'm sick of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm confident that you would pull the guy's nomination if you were in the position to do so, because, you and I have come to know each other over the past year, and there's really no other lawyer in the United States that I'm aware of that's doing the types of things that you and your team at freedomwatchusa.org are doing. You've been challenging Robert Mueller head on, unlike any other person, let alone another attorney. And of course, you're representing Dr. Corsi in what will be a real court battle against Robert Mueller. People should go to freedomwatchusa.org, and they should sign up for the Justice League, and of course, provide some financial sponsorship to you and your team there. People can just click on that donate button to support all the important work that you're doing at Freedom Watch. Larry, from a legal standpoint, why were all these senators who, frankly, I'm so unimpressed with their level of intelligence. They're talking about, Facebook and encryption and data sharing, and they obviously don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so I would assume there are a lot of other areas that they speak on that they don't know what they're talking about. Why was everybody asking Barr if he would recuse himself from the Russia investigation? He had nothing to do with this. Why would they just want every attorney general to recuse himself?
Well, they're not going to be asking that anymore. They got what they wanted. Let's take a Machiavellian approach that Barr was basically lying to the senators that were on that Senate Judiciary Committee. That's not good either. If you have to go there and lie and then take a stand later against Mueller, that's not going to happen. Okay, he's locked in. He's part of the establishment. He was under oath. And all of these other issues that came up, that's because everybody was happy. Barr gave the Democrats exactly what they wanted. He is locked in now, and he's going to let Mueller do what he wants. He's going to rubber stamp everything Mueller wants at the recommendation of Rod Rosenstein, and don't count on Rosenstein being gone now. I now predict he's going to stay longer.
Really?
And of course, Mueller, has to be watching this today with his prosecutor saying, hey, we've got the wind at our back now. We've got this yes man in control of the Justice Department. Nothing's going to change.
It's really pretty scary.
So this is where we are today. And again, it's scary. The guy, I'm 68, I don't need this job. What kind of BS is this for the American people? He doesn't need this job. When we got people that are considering running for president at age 80, Joe Biden. So, I don't take personal offense because I'm 67. I still feel very young. But all of this fake, nonsense, whatever's spewed forth to the American people is enough to disgust you. And it reaffirms, I realize I'm being, very direct here, but our Justice the system is totally broken down. We have politicized judges, with few exceptions, on the bench. We've got a Justice Department which is supposed to enforce the law and be, in fact, a beacon of our justice system, which has become the Department of Injustice, highly corrupt. We have a Congress that does nothing other than get their own people in power so they can scratch their backs, shake the money tree. This country is at the point of an explosion.
Yeah.
And if the American people buy the nonsense they watch on Fox News today, shame on them. I'm interested to see what Hannity's going to say tonight, because if he starts covering it up too, there's a real problem there.
Yeah, and I mean, the Washington Club is one thing, and it's, I know where you're coming from, but when we get into the details of what that exactly means and what the implications of that are, I think people might find it somewhat unnerving. I'm not sure what this website Global Research is, but it's got this article here saying that CIA covert operative William Barr, nominated by Trump. Do we have any hard evidence? I mean, he did say during the hearing today that he was some kind of outside advisor to the CIA, which certainly sounds to me like he's working for the CIA. What do we know about his CIA history?
I don't know much about that, but that needs to be looked into. Look, Jason, this guy's a tool, T-O-O-L, tool of the establishment. And that's why he's put in there. That's why he was put in there by H.W. Bush. I mean, that should be disqualifying in and of itself.
Exactly.
To have been the Attorney General H.W. Bush, because there's nothing more polar opposites than a H.W. Bush administration and a Trump administration.
Yeah.
And the president has to wake up. He's headed for a disaster, an absolute disaster. How can you, I know I'm reiterating myself, but how can you be nominated by the president to be Attorney General, go in front of the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, humiliate the president, say there's no witch hunt, say that Bob Mueller's a man of great integrity, undercut him, cut the legs out from under the president, and remain the nominee and likely confirmed Attorney General? I mean, what world is the president now living in? Wake up, Donald Trump.
It's very
because
hard
you have
to
sowed
understand.
the seeds of your own destruction.
Yeah.
You sowed the seeds of your own destruction. So to get back to, our website, yes, we need the financial contribution. We need to get bigger. We're the People's Justice Department. We hit a milestone just in the last few days, Jason. Over 30,000 people have now signed the petition to make me special counsel, to urge the president to do that. That's why I'd like to see Bob Barr substituted for William Barr, a courageous Barr, somebody who took the Clintons on, someone who I worked with articles of impeachment, someone who wanted an impeachment proceeding to go beyond Lewinsky to Chinagate, Filegate, Travelgate. That would have knocked Clinton out. Bob could appoint me special counsel. But even if he doesn't, you need somebody like Bob Barr. And if not Bob Barr, somebody else. There aren't that many people out there that'll do it. I've said this before. When I left Judicial Watch, I was chairman and general counsel for 10 years. I founded Judicial Watch. I recommended to Fitton and the others to bring in Bob Barr to replace me. Now, Fitton didn't want to do that because he didn't want competition. Fitton's not a lawyer. But Bob would have been a great chairman of Judicial Watch, and he was willing to do it. Now he has an opportunity to be an attorney general if the president will wake up and snap out of it and get somebody like him in there. He's the only person I know of, other than myself, who will get the job done. The only person on Capitol Hill, frankly, Jason, I could ever trust. He was actually good to his word. And I've had him on our radio show, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman on Radio America. You can see that, at radioamerica.com, or go on our website at freedomwatchusa.org, or it may be broadcast in a city in your hometown, in that area. But I say this over and over when I have Bob on. I said, Bob, you're the only one who was ever true to his word. And I firmly believe that.
Yeah, it's a very disconcerting situation, Larry. I want to read to you just a segment here from this website. It's talking about William Barr's history with the CIA. It tells us that when H.W. Bush became the CIA director in 1976, Barr joined the CIA's legal office and Bush's inner circle and worked alongside Bush's longtime CIA enforcers, Ted Shackley, Felix Rodriguez, Thomas Klein's, I mean, some of these people are alleged to have been involved. There we go. Several of whom were likely involved in the Bay of Pigs and the JFK assassination. The deep state doesn't get any deeper than William Barr.
No, they just keep recycling these people. And it's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They turn up from time to time. And, you know, this has ramifications beyond President Trump. I'm trying to get the Justice Department now to back down on its notice of appeal with Cliven Bundy, his sons, and the other very courageous, peaceful protesters in the successful standoff at Bunkerville. Can I deal with someone like Barr? I doubt it. You know, he's not going to ruffle feathers the establishment inside of the Justice Department. We're going to have to be prepared to go the distance and defend Cliven in that appeal. And I hope the people will go to the ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, and contribute to that cause, because Cliven Bundy represents you, the American people. He stood up to a runaway, criminally minded Justice Department, FBI, Bureau of Land Management, former Senator Harry Reid, Barack Obama, James Comey, and after that, Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States. This is the guy, with or without legal training, should be an Attorney General, not Bob Barr. Excuse me, not William Barr, because this is somebody who understands what justice is all about and is fighting not just for himself and his family, but for the American people.
Yeah. Larry, you're involved in so many legal cases. I think it's almost mind-boggling. It's difficult for people to understand how hard you're working. I don't want to get off William Barr just yet, but I think all of this speaks to the Mueller investigation, which of course is something at the forefront of your mind, defending Dr. Corsi and having the FOIA lawsuit that you've brought that revealed all of these communications. It came out last week that Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian lawyer who is involved with this Trump Tower meeting, it's come out that she's been criminally charged in a case in the Southern District of New York that came about as a result of her acting as an attorney in a civil matter defending this company that was connected to Bill Browder, and she apparently worked directly with the Russian government. Now, the reason I bring this up, Larry, is that this was a civil matter that was settled in the Southern District of New York in the end of 2017, and just the other day, we've got this unsealed criminal indictment, well, from about 3 weeks ago, but it was just unsealed the other day, where Veselnitskaya is now being criminally charged for what is described as presenting misleading and false information during the civil case. How frequently is a lawyer in a civil suit brought under criminal charges for something like this?
Well, that's a very good question, because ordinarily, the Department of Justice, of which I'm an alumnus, a once proud alumnus, no longer, would bring a criminal case before a civil case, because the allegations are going to be, when she gets criminally prosecuted, but she'll probably plead out, that civil process is being used to gather information, because it's easier to get information in a civil lawsuit to use in a criminal proceeding, and that can corrupt a criminal proceeding. So what it tells you is that Mueller and his yes men at the Southern District of New York are desperate, and they're actually going beyond what normal Justice Department policy is to bring the criminal case first, and they're going to try to get her to plead out and to incriminate the President of the United States, Donald Trump, with regard to the meeting that was held at the Trump Tower with Donald Trump and others. That's what this is about. They want her to plead out. They're trying to do the same thing with her that they're doing with Corsi. I can't vouch for her. I can vouch for my client and friend, Jerry Corsi, but they're trying to get her to lie, in all likelihood, to incriminate the president as to what was discussed at that meeting, to plead her out, to account of perjury or something to that effect.
Well, but the question, though, Larry, she's basically been in the New York Times saying that she's hanging out in Russia and is not going to answer this criminal charge. She's going to defend herself from Russia, but she's practically singing from the top of the mountain that she wants to speak to Robert Mueller. My question is, how unusual is it for a lawyer to be criminally charged after a civil action. She was defending, Prevazon or whatever that company's called in a civil case about money laundering that was settled, and now she's saying she's not going to defend herself in the criminal activity, but she wants to speak to Mueller. I feel like there's some kind of tricky thing going on here. Just specific to the question, how common is it for an attorney to be criminally charged for lying in court?
Well, it's becoming very common these days. And yeah, I mean, I wish it was the case. When I was a Justice Department lawyer, I felt that people were lying to me under oath all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
But to actually get the department to act on that, to get my superiors to act on that and charge people with perjury, was like pulling teeth. And it should be that people are held accountable under real world circumstances for the right reasons, not what's happening with the Mueller investigation, where they're setting perjury traps to get people to allegedly lie so they can squeeze them to get the testimony that they want, as Alan Dershowitz says, to compose rather than to admit true information. So I think this particular lawyer is trying to play both sides. I can't vouch for her credibility one way or the other. She's in Russia. She knows she's never going to talk to Mueller. But this is a gambit, and perhaps they'll give her immunity, and she'll say what needs to be said as far as Mueller's concerned to harm the President of the United States.
It really seems like Robert Mueller is going after some of the least relevant people while stepping aside and not speaking to any of the people who you think would be directly related. I mean, here we've got someone who's connected to the Kremlin directly, defending this company that Bill Browder is involved in. We had Vladimir Putin himself calling out Bill Browder. I don't understand why Mueller wouldn't be speaking to this woman. She was driving around with some New York Times reporter. The New York Times seems to have cornered the market on having sex with the subjects that they're interviewing. But Mueller never spoke to her. There was even an article where Peter Carr, our favorite guy, Mr. No Comment, he said that he has no comment on this. Perhaps if we go hang out at Paul's restaurant, we could ask him what he thinks about Natalia Veselnitskaya. The other person I find very curiously that they haven't spoken to at all about ties to Russia is Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross. They're busy going after people like Dr. Corsi and bothering people who don't seem to have any ties at all to Russia, but ignoring these guys who are totally involved in companies with Russia.
Well, Jason, they go after what they think are the low-hanging fruit with people that can't afford to defend themselves, threaten the families of these people. It was reported today, and I've known about it because I'm representing him, but the stepson of Larry Corsi has now been subpoenaed.
Wow.
By special counsel Robert Mueller. Watch what happens there. Okay, so that's out there in the news today. You can see it at LarryKlayman.com. It's posted at freedomwatchusa.org, reported by The Hill, Washington Post, everybody. And what they do is they're trying to intimidate Corsi to get what they want, and they won't give up. And so consequently, I'll be there with Jerry Corsi's son, and Andrew Stetner, in front of a grand jury potentially within the next few weeks. So, we will cooperate in this regard, but we're going to make sure that we tell the truth, and we're not going to shade things. But we're fighting back. Jerry's going to be amending his complaint against Mueller and others for illegal surveillance, for leaking grand jury information. More grand jury information has come out. We have our criminal complaints that were filed with the Justice Department. That's why I say, will Barr act on that? There I am in that picture with Jerry that you're showing. Will he act on that? Probably not. And we're going to have to go to a court to seek to enforce it. But what we have now in terms of William Barr as the potential nominee as Attorney General could very well turn out to be even worse than Jeff Sessions.
I would say.
Really frightening.
So, Larry, is it safe to presume that the Senate hearing was asking Barr if he would recuse himself because of his friendship with Mueller? Because that would seem like a reason to recuse himself. No,
well, that doesn't work in Washington. That doesn't cause people to recuse. I mean, you've got judges in the district court there that have given $40,000 to get their job. And when they get a case involving the president that they donated money to, they won't take themselves off the case. So how's he going to recuse himself? You got the same thing with the Bar Association in Washington, D.C., where everybody there gives to Democrats, and they prosecute Kellyanne Conway, but they leave Lanny Davis and David Kendall alone, Clinton's lawyers, who destroyed evidence and ran interference for her. This is Washington, D.C. But what they were talking about in terms of recusal is that William Barr had written a memorandum when he was trying to curry favor with Trump to get nominated. It was almost, as some of the Democrats put it, a job application, saying that Mueller was in fact conducting a witch hunt, that he was off on the wrong track, that he was exceeding his authority. Well, you know what? Once he became nominated, all of a sudden he became one of the biggest fans of Mueller in world history. Gee, what a coincidence. Now, if he's lying about that, that's not right either. You don't lie under oath to Congress. If you're playing a game just to get yourself nominated, so you're going to do something behind the scenes. That's not the integrity you need as an attorney general. But given the fact that he's now a friend, admittedly, of 30 years, close friend, that his wife goes to Bible study with Mueller's wife, it's not likely that he's lying. He thinks Mueller's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah,
and
I believe
you can forget him taking any real oversight.
I believe him when he.
Yeah.
You're losing you a little bit there, Larry. I believe him when he speaks positively about Mueller, because that's, I think, where his head is. Larry, some of our viewers are suggesting that Roseanne Barr might be a better choice for Attorney General.
Yeah. Right. Well, Dive Bar might be a better choice to have it. You can have all kinds of little plays on words here, but that's what we're headed into. I mean, my God, I think today was the low point as an observer, commentator, columnist, pundit in my entire legal life to watch that garbage being spewed forth at the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. Senate. What garbage.
I was looking earlier at one of these, 5 things you need to know about William Barr lists, and it had said that some of his great achievements were overseeing the prosecution of people involved with Iran-Contra and Manuel Noriega. And this list said that he had prosecuted Manuel Noriega for involvement in the Lockerbie bombing over Scotland. But that's wrong. That was blamed on Gaddafi, wasn't it? Not Noriega.
It was, and that was actually, I think, a justification when Ronald Reagan bombed Tripoli and the presidential palace and wound up killing at least one of Gaddafi's sons, which kind of set him back for a number of years psychologically. But yeah, I mean, these resumes mean nothing, Jason. They really do. And,
no, I think they tell us quite a lot. They tell us what this guy is really all about. I mean, he's hanging out with GHW Bush and the deepest of the deep state swamp monsters. He's down there in the muck. For some reason, Larry, we're getting a huge hit on the internet right now. Web page is not loading, and you've gone to crinkly compression deal here, but here we go. So he supported pardons in an earlier DC, quote, witch hunt, Iran-Contra. But of course, Iran-Contra was not a witch hunt. Iran-Contra was one of the grossest crimes against the United States, where this evil scumbag and another evil scumbag who was 42, Mr. Clinton, basically brought cocaine into the United States through Mena, Arkansas, through the airport there. I mean, I'm with you, Larry. This is so offensive that this guy is even being considered. It's hard to imagine that Trump is in control of the Department of Justice. It seems more like they're in control of him.
Remember what happened during Iran-Contra, regardless of how you feel about it. I have mixed reactions. I don't believe that President really knew Oliver North in there and others and said, look, we got to, prop up the Contras in Nicaragua. You figure out how to do it. I don't want to know. And they went off and they did something which, was really counterproductive, to put it most diplomatically. But remember, if he was involved in the pardons, it was the pardon of Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense, which occurred at the last minute. My classmate and good friend Craig Gillen was at Emory University School of Law, was the #2 prosecutor on that case under Lawrence Walsh. And the fact that Weinberger was let off at the last minute, obviously with the aid of people like Barr, shows you that Barr was basically scratching the back of the establishment back then, doing what they wanted him to do. And now, years later, he was rewarded with 2 attorney general posts. And what do these posts mean? The guy may be 68, but let's say he serves for 2 years as AG. His worth in the private market, cashing in, is going to be very, very high. So that he's doing this altruistically is not likely. This is the way you make money in Washington, D.C. It's the revolving door. You go in and out, and then you lobby the agency that you just left, particularly if you're Attorney General, you have a lot of clout, can rake in a lot of money, and that's what it's about. So this guy's there to basically scratch the backs of both establishments, of the Republican and Democrat Party. And the Democrats were so happy within the first hour of this entire proceeding that they went on to discuss other things. They said, okay, we got this guy. We got him in our pocket. We can't do better than this. This guy's one of us now.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
Definitely seems to be the case. There's another thing that William Barr said during the hearing that caught my attention that I wanted to ask you about, is that they were talking about antitrust and all this stuff that's going on with Google and Twitter and Facebook controlling so much data and all of our privacy information. And Barr said something about recusing himself from something to do with AT&T and Time Warner. I know you were involved with the antitrust action that broke up AT&T and made it possible for all the competition of all the wireless companies and all that. What is he talking about with AT&T and Time Warner, and why? That seems like the least important thing we're dealing with right now.
It's possible. Let's go back and look. Maybe he was inside the Justice Department at that time. I was on the trial team that broke up AT&T, and it could be that he actually, in some way at a high level, I didn't work with him, I was at the working level, maybe he was involved in that. It's possible. Although I don't know why that would cause him to recuse himself many, many years later. But I was listening intently to that discussion about antitrust, and although you're right, the senators really didn't know what they were talking about, I do believe that the antitrust laws need to be enforced. They haven't been enforced for many years.
Yeah.
And that's the fault of the Republican Party mostly, I got to tell you, because they cozy up to big business divide pie. And then it comes back to, because particularly social media are run by ultra-leftists that want to install leftist politicians in our government. And they've created a monster. They allowed this concentration, and it's not good. After World War II, this is a lesson. It was Teddy Roosevelt who brought in the antitrust laws, by the way. But after World War II, we realized that we had to break up the tremendous economic concentration in post-war Nazi Germany, because it was the BMWs, it was the Mercedes, it was Deutsche Bank, it was others who financed not just the war, but the Holocaust. Deutsche Bank actually financed concentration camps for Hitler. So, because economic power was used to create this Nazi regime, we installed an antitrust regime in Germany, which later took hold in the European community and later the European Union. I've actually worked for the European Union as a lawyer. I'm and I was in the competition directorate. And that's the reason for the competition laws. It's not just to promote competition economically, but huge economic power creates political power, governmental power, which can't be controlled, gets out of control. And that's what we have now with these social media companies. And, if there was one little positive thing that came out of it, he didn't rule out the fact that there's an antitrust remedy to the discrimination against conservatives and others by these social media companies, although he was not as strong as I would have hoped him to be on that. Apparently, he's not really up to speed on it.
Our viewers are telling us that AT&T is currently his client. So, again, I'm just disappointed that Donald Trump wouldn't nominate Whitaker. He seems like new blood. He was speaking intelligently about what's going on with the Clintons. And that investigation, I don't think, at least from what I heard, I didn't hear really anything about that, or something about he doesn't think she should be prosecuted, right? What did he have to say about the Clintons?
Well, Whitaker has been neutralized, regrettably, in the last several months. You know, he's a fairly young guy. He wants to rise in the Washington power structure. You stick your neck out too far, the Democrats will block you in the future from any higher nomination. And he's basically gone underground. But he is, technically speaking, the head of the Justice Department right now. And William Barr just wrote him out of the hierarchy by saying that he's going to work with Rosenstein. And you know, where Whitaker goes after Barr is confirmed, God help us, is anybody's guess. But yes, Whitaker would have been a better choice, but, you know, the president took the bad advice. He swallowed the Kool-Aid. He drank at the wrong bar. You know, the president doesn't drink alcohol to his credit. I've given it up too, as a matter of fact. And, but he, you know, he is drinking the Kool-Aid of the Republican establishment, figuratively speaking. And, you know, I can't say it enough. The president needs to snap out of this. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at what point we begin to sort of, you know, I'm trying to remain positive and hold out hope, but you know, it's not like Donald Trump is nominating people that we think he should be nominating, and then he's being blocked by Democrats in the Senate or whatever it might be. He's just consistently choosing people that, how could he possibly choose this person, Rod Rosenstein, and allowing them to appoint Mueller as special counsel without any Senate confirmation. We haven't heard really anything about the lack of Senate confirmation in the mainstream news. Everybody just seems very, very interested in having Mueller continue this investigation indefinitely, investigating now Dr. Corsi's son. That's so absurd. I mean, here we've got a lawyer who was defending a company that Bill Browder is directly connected with. She's working with the Russian Federation. She gets inserted into a meeting in Trump Tower, and they're not investigating this woman. Doesn't it seem likely that someone put her there to make Trump Jr. look bad that he's meeting with this lawyer?
Probably. And remember, with regard to investigating, you know, stepsons, sons, whatever, is that the Trump family's under investigation. Jared Kushner, Donald Jr.,
right,
others, Ivanka. Okay, and look what they did with General Mike Flynn. I mean, the reason Flynn folded in large part was because they were coming after his son. And this is a technique. It's something that they use to try to bludgeon you to get what they want. And Mueller is ruthless, and his prosecutors are ruthless, and they're flailing about because they want the president's head. They haven't gotten it yet, but they think they're going to get it through coercing false testimony. And that's why Jerry Corsi, my client, is very brave. He said, no, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to consider to be contrary to the Ten Commandments and my creator, and I'm going to stick it out. And, you know, if he had cut a plea deal, look at what happened to Manafort. He got sandbagged on that. He didn't give him what they wanted, and now they're throwing the book at him. Trump will probably pardon him in the end. He knows that. But right now, I mean, he put himself behind a bigger 8-ball.
Yeah,
so
he's having
that's what it's about.
Pretty
I
lousy
hope, Jason,
time.
I hope, and let me just be self-serving here, okay? Because I honestly believe in my heart. This is what keeps me going. This is why I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, okay? It's why I work 16 hours a day. I honestly believe that there are only two people in the legal profession that will do what needs to be done. That's yours truly and Bob Barr. And I want people to go to our website, sign this petition to urge the president to withdraw the nomination of William Barr, to nominate Bob Barr, and to have me appointed special counsel. But if that doesn't happen, we're in our citizens' grand juries this month in Ventura County. We will take matters peacefully and legally into our own hands. We will call a grand jury. We will seek an indictment of Mueller and his staff. We will seek to have them prosecuted, tried, convicted, and sentenced, and we'll seek to have those sentences enforced peacefully and legally. Hopefully the president will wake up by that time and enforce them, because all of this is legal, as we've talked about. That's just for starters. You get to the Clintons, the Obamas, the Comeys, the Bruce Orrs, the Peter Strzok's, the Lisa Pages, the whole lot of them. And look what's happened recently. The House Judiciary Committee, the House Oversight and Reform Committee, walked off after they were thrown off out of the rear ends for doing nothing. The Republicans in the House of Representatives, they didn't even write a report. They just exited stage left. And now we got this guy, Kevin McCarthy, who's an absolute loser, a disgrace. This is a guy who's now the minority leader in the House of Representatives, who said publicly that previously House Republicans were investigating Hillary Clinton and Benghazi to harm her politically. Now, does this guy have an IQ over 50, Jason?
I don't know. I don't know much about him.
This is what he says. And now his big act today is to remove committeeship appointments for, the congressman from Iowa, Steve King. I know Steve King. Steve King's not a racist. Maybe he was provoked. Maybe he said something he wishes he hadn't said. But these Republicans run for the hills. They have no backbone. They have no spine. I hope that Lindsey Graham will have some spine as head of the Judiciary Committee, but the rest of them up there are a joke. They're court jesters. They're a bunch of clowns. And
Larry,
the American people need to rise up and do it for themselves.
I see that you've updated some of the copy here on freedomwatchusa.org, where now you want to replace, not only to remove Mueller, but we want to also remove William Barr. So if people have signed it once already, is this a different petition? Should they go back and sign this, or?
I think they can sign it twice, but it applies to both. It's the same concept. So go back and sign this. 30,000 people is not a small number of people. And read the article I wrote at WND.com last week, Trump drinking at the wrong bar, and take a look at what I'm saying here. You can find it on our website at freedomwatchusa.org. You can find it on the archives of worldnetdaily.com. But we have very little time here. We got to get the president's attention. And the president does have the ability to pull back this nomination of William Barr before it's too late, and to appoint Bob Barr, and to have me appointed special counsel. But please also support our citizens. They're expensive. There's deposition costs, there's location costs, personnel costs. We are going to be proceeding on our own in any event. We are the People's Justice Department. We need to get bigger. We're still small, but we're the mouse that roared.
Absolutely. And of course, I wanted to mention that people who want to support Dr. Corsi's legal fund can go to CorsiNation.com. It really is unbelievable, Larry, the number of cases that you're able to handle. I don't know if people fully appreciate that. Some of our viewers are asking about Schaefer Cox. Have you heard anything from him? How's he doing?
I have, thank God. And, we should talk about this, in a particular show, because Schaefer is a bright young guy. He's 34 years old. He's in prison for another 17 years unless we get him out. Already, one count that he was indicted and convicted for has been thrown out. Another one, a conspiracy charge, is pending, set up by state officials and FBI informants who I now have sued. I sued a guy named Bill Fulton who wrote this book about Schaefer, Pure Fiction, down there in Dallas, Texas, for defamation. I'm pursuing exculpatory information through document requests, Freedom of Information Act, and I'm trying to, do the best I can in working with the federal public defender who's been on this case, Mike Filipovich. He's a very bright guy, in getting Schaefer out of prison, because he's in one of the worst prisons, if not the worst prison in the United States. It's the facility at Terre Haute, Indiana, built in 1938, New Deal. Franklin Roosevelt. It looks like a horror movie when you get up to it. And when I was with Schaefer a few weeks ago, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but the heat was shut off. I think they were hoping I'd leave. It was 25 degrees. I was there for 7 hours, and things have happened in that prison recently. There have been murders, people with their throats slit, and when I asked that the prison look into that, Schaefer was thrown into solitary confinement. Fortunately, he's been let out. I've been trying to communicate with the Bureau of Prisons. They started an internal investigation. But see, Schaefer is somebody who respects authority, someone who He's a Christian. He's actually half Jewish, Jason. His mom was Jewish. His dad's a Baptist minister. He's kind of like me, a Jewish Christian. And he stood up to the authorities in Alaska, a very corrupt place. He uncovered a young boy trafficking scheme with pedophilia, with Eskimo kids. And he gored the wrong ox. A lot of money was being made over this. And they set him up and they put him away. And he was not only an activist dealing with gun rights and other issues, but he'd also started a militia, and a peaceful militia. And he didn't intend to harm anybody. And he got upset because the authorities tried to take his kids away from him. And he made a couple remarks, but he never tried to harm anybody. But they had to eliminate him because the kid is so charismatic. He's so bright. I don't think I've ever met someone as smart as Schaefer, homeschooled. And they feared that he could unite the militias throughout the United States. And you see, militias are not a dirty word. It's in our Second Amendment. That's why we have a right to bear arms. That's why we can commission militias. As long as you act peacefully and legally, there's nothing wrong with it, as long as you only act in self-defense. And that's all Schaefer ever intended to do. But the government does not want anything that will threaten its authority or power. And remember what Thomas Jefferson said. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty. That was the basis for the Second Amendment. Gun rights, militias.
Yeah.
That's the basis upon which the Bundys took action, not harming a hair on the head of anyone, but yet having their lives threatened. Their sister, Cliven's sister, thrown to the ground. Heard, bulls killed, buried in a mass grave to destroy their business. The land sold out from under them to Chinese environmental interests, tempted to be sold out by Harry Reid and his criminally minded son Rory in downtown, along with Obama as the facilitator. So, you see, Schaefer embodies all that. And Schaefer became my client because he was referred to me by the Bundys, who saw that the same thing was happening to him. It had already happened to him, even worse than what happened to them. So there need to be more Bundys, more Schaefer Coxes in this country. And I'm proud to be their lawyer. And, I'm someone that you go to because I'm not afraid. And because, frankly, I've had it with this justice system. And we're doing whatever we can within the bounds of the law to restore it to what the founding fathers intended it to be.
And Larry, I'm proud to know you because there is nobody else doing work like this, and to the extent that I'm able to help spread the word, that's exactly what I want to do. It's important that people go to, that's funny, there we go. It's important that people go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign the petitions and financially support the effort there. There's nobody else in the United States that's doing this. And just back on Schaefer Cox for a moment, I found this article here, Larry, in the Anchorage Daily News talking about this guy, William Fulton, basically saying that he's an FBI informant bragging about conning Alaska right-wingers. And this is talking exactly about this case of Schaefer Cox being fooled by an FBI informant. Now, let's be straight here. There's one thing to give information to the FBI if you're aware that something criminal is going to go on, but it seems like the FBI is in the regular practice of employing these provocateurs who entice people to do things or give them false information to frame them for crimes. A lot of people remember in 2017, I was working with a guy named George Webb Swigert, who introduced me to someone who I've now come to know as Okie Marshall Richards. Richards was an FBI informant who did a similar thing with a West Virginia militia, set up a guy named Ray Looker, and there are a lot of indications that the civil lawsuit that George Webb Swigert's brother has brought against me is attempting to do the same thing. He's trying to frame me for making terrorist threats, which I certainly did not make. I was responding to information these guys gave me. Is this something that's going on all the time? The FBI is setting up Americans and then arresting them and throwing them in horrible jails?
Well, they are, and you see it in the witch hunt Mueller investigation. You see it all over the place. Yeah, it happens all the time. And,
Wow.
Schaefer is a victim because, you see, if you're not somebody who they fear, they'll leave you alone. But Schaefer has a tremendous ability to communicate. He ran for the state legislature in Alaska. He knows Sarah Palin. This is not some guy who was out there in the wilderness shooting for bear. In fact, he got shot, and figuratively speaking, and this guy's going to be in prison, for another 17 years unless we get him out.
Wow.
So, go to SchaeferCox.com and read more about Schaefer. I'm going to get the complaint we filed against this informant, Bill Clinton, up on LarryKlayman.com. Read
Fulton.
that.
Bill Fulton.
Bill Fulton, yeah. And, one of the things that, as we set forth in the complaint, apparently this guy Fulton kind of liked Schaefer. He came on to him. Schaefer rejected him. There's a lot of that going on in Alaska. And, the guy went after him, just resents him. The book that was written was ghostwritten by a far leftist. One of the people that endorsed the book, Tom Hartman, a commentator on RT television, Putin's television, is a communist. The left wanted to destroy Schaefer Cox. Francis Schaefer Cox is his full name, because he's a threat to the left. So just like they try to destroy me, like they try to destroy you, like they try to destroy anybody, that's effective. And I got to say, I really appreciate you, Jason, because to have an hour just to talk and to get it out there, and you're a great interviewer, and Crowdsource the Truth is extremely important. And frankly, it's more fair and balanced than other networks, and you know who I'm talking about. You don't sugarcoat, you tell it like it is, and the American people need to have the raw truth. And that's what the president does, but he's been led astray lately, and it's scary.
Yeah, I think the president might do well to watch a couple of episodes of Crowdsource the Truth, and thank you for those kind words. Is this the Schaefer Cox website right here, Larry? freeschaefer.com?
Yes, it's one of them. Yeah, I would look to it and read about Schaefer and watch what happens. I'm confident we will get him out of prison. He's up for resentencing in May of this year, and we're working to that extent. And once Schaefer is freed, you'll see what I'm talking about. He really is, someone who can make a difference in this country.
So it's no joke. The more effective you are, I mean, it's becoming obvious. You look at somebody like Alex Jones. Even if you dislike Alex Jones, he was very effective at spreading a message that was quite contrary to what's being spread by CNN and Fox. As you point out, Fox is lauding this guy who by all measures seems to be, William Barr I'm talking about again, just a CIA spook who they've inserted into the Department of Justice. I don't see how Donald Trump can miss that, but hopefully he can figure it out before it's too late. There's a lot of indications that William Barr was a covert operative. Do you recognize, it looks like Joe Biden. Who have we got in this picture, Larry? Can you make that out? Do you see that on the screen share?
You got Strom Thurmond on the left from South Carolina. You got Joe Biden, you got William Barr, and then you got Pat Leahy, who still miraculously is still on the Judiciary Committee.
Wow.
And
yeah, I saw him at the hearing today, Leahy questioning Barr. So they're old buddies.
Yeah. But quite apart from Barr being a former CIA operative, is the fact that he is vintage Washington elite establishment, people who think they're better than we are, people who think they're smarter than we are, people that think they get to call the shots, people who basically, as Louis XV said, let the people be damned, après moi le déluge, there will be a flood after me, I could care less. I mean, that's what these people are. And this is why this country is sinking so fast, the William Barrs of the world, because, they just want the status quo. Look, you've seen Ken Starr on TV recently all over the place. Here's a guy who I call Baby Huey. Okay. I mean, he's clueless. He's absolutely clueless. And he thinks everything works for the best. We have these institutions with great integrity. He's part of the club, so sure, it's integrity. Bob Barr is the person to have as Attorney General, not William Barr. And William Barr is the flip side of Ken Starr, who frankly was eaten alive by the Clintons. I mean, that's how naive he was. So, and they never really went after the Clintons for what he should go after them for. Not Monica Lewinsky, that was no major scandal. I mean, we had Chinagate, Travelgate, IRS-gate, Hillary Clinton gate. I mean, every gate you had. And these people looked the other way and went after this ridiculous scandal over the president's affair with an intern, which was bad. It was wrong. He lied under oath, yeah, but it was never intended to take Clinton out. And of course, the Clintons have come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, it seems like they're still in control to some degree. You know, Larry, before we close it out, we're almost out of time. So many of our friends are in the news constantly, and, another person who people love and people love to hate is, of course, Laura Loomer, who now is written up as a far-right activist. They don't even call her a journalist anymore, I guess, because she's been banned from Twitter. But Laura went to visit Nancy Pelosi and jumped over her immoral wall so that the land could be shared with some undocumented Home Depot workers. And I'll tell you what, Laura is absolutely an expert at being Laura, because she knows exactly how to do things that should, in fact, get her arrested, but she does them to people and in situations where she knows that getting arrested would only serve to further her message. So I was texting with Laura earlier, and thankfully she did not get arrested by police outside of Nancy Pelosi's house, but she's been in the national news quite a bit. What do you think about that, Laura jumping over the wall?
Well, she made a point. Yeah, I don't know if Laura applied for asylum, but she could have tried it. Hey, being up there in San Francisco, she should be able to find a leftist judge that would say she could do that. But it does make a point, and she is a courageous person. She's a good person, and I represent her on some matters. I didn't advise her to do that, but thank God nothing happened with Nancy Pelosi. That some vicious dog out there, But yeah. I suspect that even Nancy Pelosi's dog doesn't want to have anything to do with her, so maybe that's a protection. I don't know. Yeah,
Laura does a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily advise her to do, but as I said, she's an expert at being Laura, and we need Laura in the world. I want to thank my guest, Larry Klayman, and remind everyone they should be going to freedomwatchusa.org. The work that Larry and his team at Freedom Watch are doing is so important. Larry, I hate to say this, but we no longer can really say, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, such and such is going to happen. We're living under tyranny. When the FBI can set you up and throw you in prison like they have Schaefer Cox for revealing child trafficking and pedophilia, we really are living under a criminal, tyrannical regime. And the fact that we've got Bob Barr coming in, a guy who was...
William Barr.
William Barr. Yes, William Barr. The fact that we've got William Barr coming in, a guy who was just a few decades ago hobnobbing with GHW Bush and some of the most really horrid criminals of all time, I don't know what to say.
Well, what we can say is that when good men do nothing, evil will prevail.
It's true.
It may have been Thomas Paine. I'm trying to remember who said that, but it was very, very appropriate. And Laura's doing her part. I'm doing my part. You're doing your part, Jason. And we all need to band together. We all need to hang together, because, as Benjamin Franklin said, if not, we'll hang separately.
Yes.
And that's where we are.
Absolutely, Larry. I've just come across something very troubling. This Veterans Today article claims that William Barr was part of Operation 40. And that would definitely put him squarely in the middle of the JFK assassination. There's so many questions about William Barr that remain to be answered. I'm very troubled by this nomination, Larry, but it seems almost a certainty that he will be confirmed. So we'll just have to have you back in a week or so and see how things develop and what goes on here.
You know what, briefly, Jason, if you look at it as God's way, maybe God is telling us, of course, only he knows, where he's going. Maybe he's telling us, hey, this is how bad it is right now. We, the people, must rise up. You must do my good will with my divine grace. Because if somebody like this is Attorney General of the United States, we have to take matters into our own legal and peaceful hands. It's the last straw.
Yeah. I fear you might be correct, and I hope that there is some peaceful solution for us out there. Larry, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to be back in just 30 minutes with Michael Moore, the journalist formerly known as Thomas Paine, for the Patreon-only More Pain. So I'll see everybody there, only on Patreon. Thank you so much, Larry. I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you, Jason. God bless.
Have a great night, and thanks for watching, everybody.